I'm Susan Birch, and welcome to another A Health Detective podcast. Today's guest is my extraordinary friend, John Mitchell. And no, it's not the rugby coach, John Mitchell, although I think he'd probably be a great guest as well sometime. You will have noticed that I'm mixing my podcast up with experts who talk about nutrition and health, and then those who talk about our mindset and our approach to our lives. And that's because so many of my clients tell me how they feel completely overwhelmed, and that sense of overwhelm makes taking care of their health very difficult. It is possible to rewire your brain circuits, those neural pathways, when you're in a place of overwhelm. And then that way you can learn to live a life that brings you all the joy and fulfillment and passion that you deserve. So if you're someone who feels this way, or maybe you just want more out of your life, you're almost there, but not quite, then listen to John's inspiring story, and the message that he will share with us today might be the missing link. I know for me, just talking with John has helped tremendously when I put some of his suggestions into practice, and I can't thank him enough for his words of wisdom and for coming along today. Thanks, John. Thanks so much for being here. And I'm really excited about this podcast.
Hey, me too. I'm glad to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us your very inspiring story?
Sure. Well, I started out as a CPA, became an entrepreneur when I was 30. But when I got to be 50, Susan, I was just not as successful as I thought I should be. And I really had two goals in my life: to make enough money so I didn't have to work, so I'd have freedom. And I wanted to find the woman of my dreams. Well, at 50, I was falling short on both of them. And on the money, and I know this is going to sound materialistic, but I saw that I had to net $1 million a year to have the exceptional life I wanted, really to have freedom like I wanted it more than anything else. And then the other side of my life, at 50, I'd never been married. And it was clear to me I wanted a partner. I wanted to experience true love. And so the challenge was I was falling short on both of my goals. And so at 50, I'm like, well, how do I change this 20-year history? And about 3 months after I turned 50, it comes to me: find the top book in the world on success and apply that book literally word for word to my life. And so I'm not sure that there is one book above all others. So I do a little research, and really, to my surprise, Susan, I saw that there's one book that's been read by literally 100 million people. And the next best-selling book on success has been read by less than 10 million people. And that book is Think and Grow Rich. And I bet you've heard of it, or you probably read it, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm like, well, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm like a heat-seeking missile. I go down the next morning to buy the book, read the book. Then, Susan, I see the problem. The book says there's a secret for success, but the author only gives you half of the secret. It's on the reader to figure out the other half. Well, I needed the full secret. And so I'm disappointed, and I mope around for probably 2 or 3 weeks. And then one day I just get up and go, John, figure out the full secret. Just man up and figure out the full secret. And so I then immersed myself in the book for probably 2 months. And what emerges is I figure out the full secret and a 12-minute-a-day technique to apply it. And I started applying it to a new business I was starting in the reverse mortgage business. And quickly, my income starts doubling. And to where 4 years later, I'm netting $5 million a year, which was 25 times more than I'd ever made ever before. And of course, I felt so blessed, and I could see why it was working. For the first time ever, I was proactively influencing my autopilot. And I could just do things I never could before. And it was happening automatically without thinking. And it truly felt like having a superpower. I was just playing the game of life at a higher level. And so maybe the coolest thing about it was I had this sense of control over my life to a level I'd never experienced before. And as you understand how this works, you'll see why that was the case. And so to sort of wrap this up, I just became fascinated that you could take two key scientific principles and apply them to your life and so materially impact your success. And so I wanted to share this with the world. I was blessed to get enough money so I didn't have to work, and that shifted my focus to sharing this with the world. And probably I sold my company, and maybe a month after I sold my company, I meet the former chancellor and president at the University of Texas, and he says, "Hey, you got to teach this at the University of Texas, and why don't we teach it together?" And so that was 7 years ago, and that started the process of teaching it to the world.
It's such a wonderful story, and we'll dive a little bit more deeply into those processes and what you do as we go along. What about your wife? Tell us about your wife.
I'm proud of my wife. You know, as I started doing this when I was basically 50, I met my wife by defining exactly what I was looking for and who I needed to be to attract her. And she came to me. And you know, I've been married. God, how long have I been married? You know, about a little over 10 years.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a lovely story. So, where shall we start with this? Shall we start by talking about the subconscious mind and how the subconscious mind impacts our ability to live the life that we
Yeah, I think yes. And let me set that up a little. So, you know, Think and Grow Rich talks about applying science to your life to up your success, which is an idea that most people have never really thought about, and more specifically, applying the science of the human mind to leverage yourself. And Susan, the book is based on one key fact: 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. And so think about that. If your success is determined by the cumulative effect of your daily actions, which you would probably agree that's true, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if 95% of your daily actions are unconscious, the only way you can have a higher level of success than you're currently having is to influence those unconscious daily actions. I mean, it's pure math. And so once I grasped that when I was 50, I mean, everything changed. I saw that, well, yeah, clearly I've got to rewire my autopilot so I can take the desired actions that I couldn't before. And, you know, as I teach this to people, I see that they can get it intellectually, that 95% of their daily actions are unconscious, but let's get it a little deeper. Like in your case, how does that fact influence your life, your own life?
Well, it influences my life in things like what time I get out of bed in the morning, what my attitude is to my day, how distracted I let myself become when I'm trying to do some deep work and it's hard, and you know, I unconsciously pick up the phone and start scrolling through social media or doing something like that, or I take calls from people who I know will take an hour.
Yeah.
So it impacts in every aspect. It impacts in what I take out of the refrigerator. It impacts in how I walk around, and then I'm like, and then you open the fridge and you take something out and eat it because you're just not
You're not in control of those actions,
well, yeah,
essentially.
and then you look and you go, oh, I don't remember making the decision to do that.
You know, Susan, that is a very good answer. I mean, you're right. You're exactly right. Again, it comes back to your daily actions. The cumulative effect of your daily actions determine your success, and you don't have control over 95% of those daily actions. And so I think once people sort of see, oh, I see how this impacts my life. I'm not in control of my daily actions, and that's what's determined my success. That's when people really respond to what I'm teaching them, because I'm telling you, the biggest lesson I ever learned in my life was that 95% of my daily actions are unconscious. Because once I got that, my life got infinitely easier. And you know, when I told my story, I told you it feels like having a superpower when you can control your autopilot. And I'll give you an example, and this is perfect for your audience because it relates to health. And this happened around Christmas, so a few months ago. I decided to go see one of my clients who was in San Antonio, and I decided to get Ginger to go with me. And San Antonio is about an hour from Austin, so it's not that long a drive. And so I tell Jen to meet me at Starbucks at 2 p.m. So I get there a little early, and hey, it's Christmas. I decide I'm going to have a brownie. Okay, so I order brownie, start eating the brownie. And one of the things I feed myself in this 12-minute a day technique that I'm going to explain to you is that I feed to myself every day that I'm aware of everything I put in my mouth. Okay. Well, I'm aware of eating that brownie, and I'm also aware that it doesn't taste that good. Nevertheless, I finish it. And so Ginger comes, we jump in my car, and I notice as we're driving to San Antonio that I'm not very hungry, and I just don't feel very good. And so we get back home that night, and I thought, you know, I'm going to change one word of what I feed to myself every day through my template. And so I changed it from I'm aware of everything I put in my mouth to I evaluate everything I put in my mouth. So Susan, the next day, next evening, Ginger and I meet her son out for Mexican food, and I ordered the tacos. Well, tacos come and they're not very good, except this time I just slide those tacos away and I don't have another bite. All that happened automatically without thinking, because now I trained my subconscious mind to evaluate everything I put in my mouth as opposed to just aware. And that night, as I'm laying in bed, I'm like, boy, I tell you, if that's not a superpower, I don't know what is. When you can control those automatic actions and you can take the right actions automatically without thinking, that is a superpower.
I really like that. And I'm looking forward to talking a bit more about how we put those into our conscious behaviors. And I'm just going to have to pause this for a moment because for some reason my computer isn't charging and I've just got a low battery light. So I'll just pass on pause and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Great. Okay, we're back again. Computer is charging. John, you and I talked a while ago about that. You shared that little story with me, which I think is really powerful. And even having just talked to you about it, I noticed that when I go to the fridge to get something out to eat, well, I should say when I go to the fridge because I'm thinking hard about something and I go and look for some chocolate.
Right.
I actually, and to be full disclosure, I actually now stop and go, do I really need to eat chocolate?
Yeah.
Am I actually hungry? Or is my mind just working really hard trying to process something? And is there something better I could do to help it with that process? And I haven't gone to the fridge and eaten chocolate for over a month since you shared that story with me.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. So
Well,
these are really powerful. This kind of auto suggestion stuff is really powerful.
Well, and let me explain the fundamental problem that we all have, and this is right at the root of all this. So we're innately wired for survival, which means that we're innately wired to be fear-based, reactive, and negative, which is exactly how we wanted to be 5,000 years ago when there was danger around every corner. You wanted to be reactive and fear-based, but it's exactly the opposite of the way you need to be if you want to be productive, creative, and happy. And so that's the first problem. The other problem then is what we talked about a minute ago, that 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. Therefore, you're not consciously in control of them. Well, the effect of those two things is that when you wake up each morning, you're on autopilot most of the day, innately wired to be fear-based and reactive. And that's why so many people, so many of my clients and people in general have this feeling, they see this disconnect between their efforts and their results, and they see that they feel like they're playing at 20% of their potential, which is very true. They're way under their potential, and the only way you can reach your potential is to influence those unconscious daily actions. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And so many of my clients talk about overwhelm, and my male clients, but particularly for my female clients who are trying to do everything. They feel overwhelmed with life at home, taking care of the kids, working hard on their careers, and they are the last person that they look after. There's this incredible sense of guilt if you feel that you're putting yourself before you're putting other people. And
Right.
I also know ruminating is a huge problem. That's a problem that I have had myself for years. Something happens and you keep ruminating on it. Whereas,
Right.
And that's that subconscious thoughts just.
Exactly. Well, and that's that being fear-based, being reactive. That if you don't overlay programming to fix that, that's what you get. And I'll now let me really give you the core science. The science behind all this is amazingly simple, but let me explain why that happens. So here's how the human mind works. Conscious mind sets the intention is influenced based on logic, but the subconscious mind controls your daily actions, and it's only influenced by repetition. It doesn't care about logic. And here's an example. Let's say you want to lose weight. Well, the conscious mind sets the intention based on the logic of the health benefits. But the subconscious mind is controlling you're doing the exercise and controlling your eating, and it's only influenced by repetition. And so the reason most people aren't losing weight is not from lack of intention, it's clearly from not influencing the part of their brain that's controlling their daily actions and thoughts. And so that's the essence of it. And again, the reason that repetition is the key is that, think about this. It takes a way more brain power to figure out your intentions. That's where the logic comes in. That's just a higher aspect of the human mind, is figuring out your intentions, what's best for you. But once you figure out what's best for you and you're clear about whatever the actions are, then it's simply the lower level of the mind the subconscious mind. It's just take that repetition and feed that repetition to yourself every day about the specific behaviors that you want. And after approximately 21 days, the science kicks in and you have rewired your autopilot so that those key actions happen automatically. So as you follow that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, to summarize in my words would be, I have a goal,
Mm-hmm.
which are my intentions, and then I have my beliefs, which are basically my autopilot.
Right.
And when my beliefs are not in alignment with my goal, when they don't match up to my goal, I end up living my life through my beliefs, and I either abandon my goal or I have to reduce my goal to come back to suit my belief system.
Right. And let me adjust that just a little, and that's essentially correct. But here's how you really use the science that I just explained to transform your life. So, you know, I tell you with Think and Grow Rich, he only gives you half of the secret. Well, that the half of the secret he gives you is that everything starts with a thought. Well, I read that and I'm like, sure, I certainly buy that, but where do I go with that? I mean, that's pretty broad. Well, once I really dug into it, I realized that the full secret is what you envision in detail on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And what that really means is when you step back from your life and you define, here's exactly the person I want to be, here's exactly what I want to accomplish, and here's precisely how I'm going to achieve my clearly defined goals. And I feed that to myself every day. After 21 days, the subconscious mind will accept the programming and it will upgrade your daily actions and thoughts, and those improved, upgraded daily actions will create the life you want. I mean, it's powerfully simple, but that's how it works. And so, as we apply this to people's lives, we have a questionnaire and we have a template. The questionnaire causes them to get that clarity. We're asking a lot of questions. We're helping them with that clarity. Sometimes people need a little pulling out of the clarity. That third party can sometimes pull out that clarity, whereas you might be stuck. But once we get that clarity, then we put that clarity on our template so that it's concise, and so you can feed that clarity yourself 12 minutes a day. It also is including some NLP. How you say things to yourself is critical. And so that's how it works. And we basically divide your life into the 5 areas, you know, yourself, your health, your romantic relationship, your spirituality, and your career. And you take each of those 5 areas and you define the ideal you in those 5 areas, along with the improvements you want in each area of your life. And then you're also going to be living your life quarter by quarter. So each new quarter, you're going to have a new goal for your career, a new goal for your health, a new goal for your romantic relationship. And you'll articulate, here is the goal, here's the why behind it, here's the key behaviors associated with it. So that in essence is how we accomplish what we accomplish.
When you're breaking these goals down into quarters, so you've got that bigger vision, that bigger purpose statement, and your bigger vision, and then are those goals smaller steps of that bigger vision?
Yeah. You know, there's like in your business, there's always a new goal. You know, when you get to doing this, you have this immense control over your life and you get stuff done. You get things that you want to accomplish in your business done. Now that those things are done, you have new things, and that's how it works with each area of your life. And you know, Susan, one of the things that I have found interesting with this is candidly, this is only for people that are driven. And I say that because maybe the best way to explain that is a few years ago, I decided to share this with Darren Hardy, who I perceive as the top expert in the world on success and human achievement. And so I wanted to see what he thought about it. So, you know, see if he thought there were anything like it, if he saw any flaws in it. And so I spent 3 days with him, and I show him this, and he says, "Wow, this is really good." But he says, "John, people aren't going to spend 12 minutes a day on this." And I'm like, "Darren, how can that be? You know, this 25x my income." Time Magazine did a cover story on the science behind it, and we're applying the central concept of the top book of the world on success. And he sort of laughed, and he says, "Well, you're new to the success business." And he says, "The dirty little secret of the success and human achievement field is that most people won't do anything to impact their success and achievement, because more success is merely a preference. It's not a necessity." And he says, you need to just show this to people that are driven, where a higher level of success is absolutely a necessity. And Susan, that was so insightful. You know, I didn't fully understand it when he gave that to me. As my life has played out over the last 3 or 4 years, he is so right. And I see with driven people, they know who they are. You know, if you're wondering, am I driven? You're not driven. You know it if you are.
Yeah.
And so that was very helpful to me.
And here, isn't it? It's just this passion in here, this desire to fulfill some sort of potential that you know that you have, and it just sits in there, and it just won't go away.
But you know, I'll say this, and I know I just feel your energy. You're driven, but us driven people, we have to be focused and channeled. And you know, I saw that what was so transformative in my particularly in my income was that once I started doing this, I'm focused only on what moves the needle. All distractions fall by the wayside. I tripled my discipline. You know, then now I could do these key habits that I couldn't do before, because now I'm controlling my autopilot. And I also saw that I had new ideas coming into my head every single week that just weren't coming in before. And so that's why it really worked.
Because I mean, I agree with you, working in the health area, that I mean, the solutions are simple, like it's always simple. It's just, it's not easy to implement. And I think shifting that needle on what did you call it? It was a preference. You have a preference, you know, so people come and say,
the difference between a necessity or merely a preference.
Because people come and say, you know, I'd like to lose 10 kgs in weight.
Right.
But asking people or having people complete exactly as you said, you know, 10 minutes a day of reviewing their goals, and then reinforcing their subconscious mind as to what they want or how they're going to go about achieving those goals, and the kind of person they need to be in order to lose 10 kgs of weight. You're exactly right. I don't have time. I'm too busy. I'm too overwhelmed. And yeah, so what would you say to people to help them think about that, to move that needle?
Well, you know, if you don't mind, can I reveal something that was sort of personal and maybe take this to a little deeper level?
Absolutely.
So when I was 50, okay, I'm dealing with, the scarcity of time issue and turning that decade. But the other thing that was going on with me, Susan, was I was losing my mom. She was dying of pancreatic cancer. And I remember going to the hospital every day after work and to see her. And I'd spend a couple hours with her, and then I'd leave and I'd go out in that dark parking lot and just cry my eyes out because I knew I was losing her. I didn't want her to see that. Um, I'm sure she knew she was dying, but if she saw me crying, she'd know she was dying. And so I didn't want her to see that. But what was really going on was, as I thought about it, really not, maybe not at the time, but what was hitting me was I'm losing my mom, and that's bad enough. But my mom and dad did everything they could for me. They sent me to Jesuit high school in Dallas when they probably couldn't afford it. And I was just I'm not making a dent in the world with my life. I have a okay life. I have an average life, but uh, I'm not really honoring all the things that they gave me. And I felt so bad about that, on top of losing my mom, that, and it struck me so deeply how precious life is, that when I came up with the idea to go find the top book in the world on success and apply that book literally word for word to my life, when I started reading it, that's what made me go deeper than probably any other person on the face of the earth, to figure out that full secret. And I see that motivation of losing my mom and feeling like I'm not honoring her was the motivation to make me go deeper than anybody else in that book and develop what I created.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a very powerful story. And yes, so sorry for the loss of your mum.
But let's apply that to your audience. So what's the takeaway of that? Well, your life is precious, and you've got to appreciate the scarcity of time. You're not going to get a do-over on this thing. This is it. And I get it. People go, well, I don't have 12 minutes a day. I don't have this. I don't have that. And I don't know if you feel this way, but as I have gotten older, I see that very few things matter. Most things don't matter. There's a few things that really, really matter. You happen to be coaching people on one of those things, which is health. If you don't, I love that quote that if you have your health, you have 1,000 dreams. If you don't have your health, you have one dream. And so I think the lesson from that story is just to appreciate how precious your life is, and appreciate the scarcity of time, that you got to step up at some point and take control of your life and fix the things that aren't working. And I think what I'm sharing with you is the way to fix it.
I had a question pop into my mind, and I just lost it briefly, but it will come back. It was about the feelings of guilt and being selfish. When you say that you've only got one life, it's not a practice run, and the scarcity of time. And yet how do people juggle that with that feeling, oh, I'm being selfish? Because to me that it often seems to be an excuse that we've created, that making time to go and do some exercise. I ask people, how is eating food that is grossly unhealthy for you selfish.
Well, I'm a big believer. You got to fix your world before you can change the overall world. Um, and and I don't think there's anything wrong with being selfish to take time for you to make you the very best you can be. And we're talking about that example of eating. I allow myself 2 cheat meals a week, and I never feel deprived. I really don't. I can eat whatever I want, but I'm in control of it. And so many people I see struggle with controlling their eating or doing the exercising, but uh, that's just taking care of yourself.
Mm. Yeah, I called 2022 the year of self-care. That was my message for this year, is taking care of ourselves is our number one priority. And it's actually the biggest gift we can give
Right,
to
right,
the people around us and the people who love us and the people who we love.
right.
Because I know when I'm eating really well and I'm exercising and I'm sleeping and I'm meditating and I'm doing my morning reset, I just feel great and empowered, and I have so much more patience and tolerance and understanding and energy to bring
Well,
to the world.
right, right. Well, and I tell you, when I turned 50, I realized uh, I was working hard, but I wasn't working smart, and that was the problem. I thought I deserved big success because I worked harder than all my friends, but working hard doesn't compare to working smart. And as I teach this to people, here's the thing that makes it different than everything else. Everybody else in the human achievement and coaching field is teaching you strategies, and oftentimes very good strategies, I must say. But you got all the strategies you need. You got strategies come out your ears. What you need is to get great strategies to show up in your daily thoughts and actions. And that's precisely what this does by rewiring your autopilot. And, sometimes people go, well, this won't work on me. I'm like, this works on everybody. This can't not work. We're applying science to your life. If you're human, this works. Now, that doesn't mean it's right for everybody because, like I mentioned before, you got to be driven and you got to do the work. The easy part is the 12 minutes a day. The hard part is creating that clarity that goes in that 12 minutes a day. And most people will not do the work required to create that clarity. And so that's why I say it works on everybody, but it's not for everybody. Does that make sense?
It does. Would you want to run through, a rough, say maybe just using, using improving your eating, for example? Would you be able to run through just a rough sort of,
Mm-hmm.
how that sits and a model of how that would look? Just a couple of questions you would ask yourself, and then how you would set up that 12 minutes a day.
Well, as an example, a great question. So I would articulate the ideal me from a health standpoint. So I would articulate that on exercise, I'm going to exercise 6 days a week. I'm going to do it Sunday through Friday. So those are the 6 days. I do it at 5:30 p.m. And so I'm being specific because one of the key things you have to do to influence the subconscious mind is you have to be specific. If you're general, it doesn't know what to do with that. It only knows what to do when you're specific. So I'm real clear about here's what time I'm exercising, here's when I'm going to exercise, here's what I'm doing. Tuesdays and Thursdays I'm doing weight training, the rest of the time I'm on the treadmill. And when you feed that to yourself every day, you condition your autopilot to accept it. And like I said, one of the things on eating is I go, I'm going to allow myself 2 cheat meals a week, and the rest of the time I'm going to eat healthy. And you know what I look and I sort of, if a meal is healthy or not healthy. I it doesn't take too much to figure that out. But I never feel deprived, and also articulate that I'm going to hold my weight at 169 pounds, and I'm going to make myself hit that weight once a month or every other month. I personally do it every other month, but that's the type of being specific I'm talking about. And I'll give you an example in my marriage. So once I got married, my married friends failed to tell me, Susan, that every once in a while your spouse will say something irritating. And yeah, I know. Who knew?
Yeah.
And so when it happened to me, I'm like, boy, I tell you, it was so hard to get a girl to marry me. I darn sure don't want to lose her. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to program myself to be flexible, patient, and thoughtful. Okay, so I start feeding that to myself every day. Well, Susan, about 15 days in, I'm no more flexible, patient, or thoughtful than I was when I started. But around the 21st day, Ginger says something irritating to me. And in that moment, I'm flexible, patient, and thoughtful. It happens automatically. I didn't have to think about it. That's who I had become. And the reason it didn't work 15 days in is because the subconscious mind is rejecting the programming, because that's just how it works. It's seeing you try to influence it with this or that, and it always sees that it goes away. And one of the things about human nature is we're resistant to change. So he doesn't really want this change. But there is a point, and I see it consistently at 21 days, where the subconscious mind finally goes, oh, I give up. I'm just going to make it now show up in your thoughts and actions automatically, because this just keeps on coming at me, and I give up.
That's a really great example. So how much, when we started talking about this, we're talking about you need to decide who the person is you want to become. You said that you'd decided the kind of woman you wanted to marry, and then you'd looked at yourself and said, who do I need to become to attract that kind of woman?
Right.
So if we go back to our health example, and you're talking about, your weekly workout and, eating healthy except for 2 cheat meals a week, did you work on what kind of person you needed to be, who you wanted to be, overarching, making that plan and making those decisions?
Yes, good question. Well, here's the beauty of it. You can work on it, all aspects of your life at the same time. On me personally, I would define, here's my top 3 values. Like, I'm amazed at how, if you ask people, what are your top 3 values? Oftentimes they'll stumble around. They don't know. Well, how can you live those top 3 values if you can't even answer the question of what they are? And you articulate all the attributes that you want in yourself. And when you feed that to yourself, you become that. And it is so powerful.
And, when we're talking about these values, what value would you place on being able to trust your own word to yourself as a value?
Oh, man, Susan, that is the key. That, especially in this methodology, because you're like, my number one value is doing what I say I'm going to do, especially to myself. And that's foundational to this methodology, because when you embrace this and you define the ideal you in those 5 areas of your life, you're making assertions that you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and it's all foundationally built on doing what you say you're going to do. You know, if you can't embrace that principle, then I don't know. Yeah, I think you're going to be challenged in life. But part of this is once you embrace that I do what I say I'm going to do, especially with what I say to myself, but really you live that with other people as well. It's integrity, and guess what happens when you feel integrity? You have confidence, and I see the way that most people do life is they're fear-based, they're scattered, they get up and you know they're just scattered. And to me, it's a horrible way to live. And like in as an example in the career part, I will articulate to myself every day like 7 key things. Here's where I want to be in 3 years. Here's what I want to be making, netting. Here's how many employees I want to have. Then I list the 4 or 5 milestones to get there. I'm going to articulate my succinct business plan, my strategy for success, the 2 or 3 things that move the needle in my business, the linchpin issue to go to the next level. And, you know, when you feed all that to yourself, it's just along with, you know, all the other things regarding your health and the person you want to be, it gives you this amazing sense of order in your life, and the mind thrives on order, and the effect of that is confidence. So when you get up each day and you read this and you've now programmed yourself for success, there's no stress. You're operating with confidence, and Susan, it's 1,000 times better way than how most people operate.
Mm, mm. And it gives each day a purpose.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, I've been exercising, well, I would say in a formal way, I suppose, you know, I suppose to describe it that way, for 43 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I can remember when I was in my 20s, after having done some workout I'd done, and I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if I'll still do this when I'm 60.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave myself my word when I was in my 20s that I would do it when I was in my 60s. And people say to me, you know, oh, why do you exercise like that? And why do you do it? And I don't even particularly like exercising. I would say every time I do a workout, I'm driven to do a workout because I'm keeping my word to myself and it's my discipline. But I've also got the monkey on my shoulder going, oh, God, you know, do you really want to do that? You don't need to do that.
Well, now, Susan, that's something that we can fix, and you know, you'd find this interesting. And I met our mutual friend Laban from Tommy Breedlove. Do you know Tommy?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So I went to Tommy's mastermind or his retreat 2 weeks ago in Georgia. And so I go and there's 10 guys there. And I observed something that's absolutely stunned me. Every man there had this negative voice in their head telling them they're either not good enough or they're not smart enough or they don't deserve success. And I remember telling Tommy, well, I said it to the group. I'm like, you don't have to put up with that. That's respectfully, that's ridiculous. And one of the guys said, and this really inspired me, he says, you know, I'll say things to myself that I wouldn't let other people say to me. And I, you know, as I told the group, I'm like, life is hard enough without you piling on that you're not good enough or you don't deserve success. And I'm like, I don't have any of that. I mean, of course I don't, because I'm programming myself to not have that. And I was telling Tommy, just had, visited with him yesterday, and we're fixing it. He and I are fixing it for his group. But I see that the majority of people have this negative voice, and boy, it does not have to be that way.
I think one of the problems is when you give into that voice, So for me, with my exercise, I don't give into the voice. Like, the voice is there going, oh, you don't have to do this today. And I don't give into the voice. Because I made that promise to myself 40 something years ago, and I keep that promise.
But Susan, that voice should not even be coming into your head. You said that I don't like exercise. Well, that's a limiting belief. And I dare say you probably do like exercise. I mean, I tell you how it works with me. I just had a little medical procedure and nothing serious, but the doctor says, now listen, I don't want you to exercise for 3 or 4 days. And, at first I'm like, okay. And then I'm like calling him a couple of days later. I said, listen, I want to exercise. Are you sure? And I see that on the surface, it may look like exercise is an effort, but I have conditioned myself to fully appreciate the value to where I want it. I mean, I know how I feel after I do it.
I agree with you there. And that's been one of the reasons I've been able to keep at it, is because the benefits and the value have far outweighed the efforts of lifting that deadlift bar or something. It's a few seconds of like, oh, why am I doing this?
Right. I'll tell you something that we ought to do for your audience. We've been talking about this, and I want to give your audience a little gift and show you how to take the first step on
Wonderful.
Influencing your autopilot. And here's what it is. I want to teach your audience how to set aside time to just think 2 times a week. Now, this is deep thinking, not normal thinking, but the top people in the world do this. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, just to name a few. And here's how you do it. I've been doing this for 18 years now. But the first thing you do is pick the 2 days a week you're gonna do it. I pick Wednesdays and Sundays. Wednesdays because I'm halfway through my week, and Sundays because I'm more reflective on the weekends. Then I pick, where am I going to do it? Well, I pick the most comfortable place in my house. Like I oftentimes go out on the deck on Lake Austin here and get in nature. And you can pick wherever you want, just not your normal workstation. Then each thinking session is 30 minutes approximately. Could be longer, could be shorter. And here's how it works. So you get your thinking tablet. And this is basically a nice leather binder with blank sheets of paper in it. So that's your thinking tablet. And now when you do the thinking, it's a 3-step process. For the first 5 or 10 minutes, you just write whatever comes. Just whatever comes, you scratch it out. Don't worry about your penmanship. Just write whatever comes, and things will come. Then after that, let's go a little deeper. Second step is figure out a question to ask yourself, and then write down that question, and then answer that question. And I'll give you a guide as to what the typical questions might be. And then answer that question for approximately 20 minutes. Then after the last thing you write, draw a line under it and list the 2 or 3 takeaways, as well as the 2 or 3 action steps, and then take those action steps and put them on next week's to-dos so that you're connecting your thinking to taking actions. And the reason it works is that like when you get your week going on Mondays, and you're off and going, and lots coming at you. You're talking to this person, you're talking to that person. And in the moment, you don't know oftentimes the significance of what you heard, but you give your subconscious mind a couple of days to process it and just watch what happens. What'll happen, you'll be there sitting and Susan, you'll go, I remember I was talking to John on Monday and he said such and such, and now I see how I can use that. You probably, when we first met, that probably happened, right? And so this methodology of setting aside time to think is really simple, and it's the entry point for proactively influencing the subconscious mind. It's a powerful, powerful habit. And if your audience will go to thinkitbeit.com/podcast, they will see I'm going to provide you with a video and a guide to what questions to ask yourself. But if all the stuff we've talked about today is interesting, this is sort of the way to take the first step. And if that's all you do, you'll get a lot of value out of it.
And so are the questions that you ask yourself on that website that you just spoke about?
Say that again.
Are the questions, so the guide
Yes.
to the questions to ask yourself, they're on that
right.
website? Fantastic. Right. That's great.
And I'll give you a quick, can I give you a quick example?
Yeah.
So I taught this to one of my, I taught this to one of my clients, and it's interesting. Half my clients are already netting over $1 million a year, and half of them are under $1 million. And this one happens to be netting over $1 million. In fact, he's the client I went to see in San Antonio, and he's in the storage facility business. And so, many warehouses, that type of stuff. And so I tell him, I go, do a thinking session and figure out what moves the needle in the business. Well, he comes back to me, we're on a Zoom call, and he says, well, I think what moves the needle is getting properties that I've recently acquired, getting them fully leased up and maybe fully developed, and getting that all to happen as quick as possible is what moves the needle. And I'm like, nah, I don't think so. I think there's something deeper here. And so I said, let's do a thinking session together. And so I say, okay, let me ask you, here's the question. What is my special talent? Well, he says, my special talent is I can see opportunities in storage that other people can't. So I go, okay, Wade, let's just remain silent for a minute and just think about this. Well, after about a minute, I'm like, I think what moves the needle is getting more properties in your evaluation pipeline and having metrics around that and having a monthly goal. And he took that one idea, which was already in his head, and applied it and started making that what he focused on. And now he's making $4 million net instead of $2 million. And I wish all my clients it was as easy as that one was. But that's a perfect example of setting aside time to think and seeing things at a deeper level. And you mentioned it before that people, they say, I don't have time for this, or I don't have time for that. Doing this deep thinking will make you look at your life deeper and understand what you need to do, because I see that two things have got to happen. You got to be going in the right direction, and you got to be influencing your daily actions. Well, this thinking gets you going in the right direction. It's that 2 times a week habit that makes micro adjustments in your direction. And then the 12-minute a day makes it show up in your daily thoughts and actions. So that's the power of doing this.
Well, I hope everybody will not just think about taking action, but will take some action on what you have talked about. And I hope everybody appreciates just how absolutely blessed we have been to have you come today, John. It's just such a pleasure to talk to you. It's always a pleasure. And I think with that time thing, you know, one of the things about the time thing, people are always telling me how much time they spend on social media. You know, I waste so much time on social media. And I think, you know, maybe you could claw back your 30 minutes twice a week and your 12 minutes a day by just reducing that social media time a little bit and
Right.
putting it into something really useful like these actions.
Well, it's all about working smarter rather than working harder. I think everybody's working hard from what I can tell, but it's a whole new ball game when you start working smarter. And when you really step back from your life and you see all the things that you're doing that make zero sense and hold you back, you know, I remember how I was. I felt that disconnect between my efforts, my results, and not having control over my life. And you know, maybe the final story to share with you that you'd find interesting is my stepdaughter had a baby about it was around Christmas. It was like a week before Christmas, and so Ginger and I go over there the day after this little boy is born, and we're over there, and for some reason they leave me alone with this little boy. He's 1 day old, so I'm holding him in my hands, and I start to cry because I'm like, life is so precious, and he's going to live for 100 years probably, and the success of his life is going to be his ability to grab a hold of his life, take personal responsibility, and create the life he wants, and how he controls his mindset. And you know, as I'm holding him there, I'm like, life is so precious, and that's the message I would have to your audience. Your life is precious, and if you feel the scarcity of time, you need to rise up and make it the way you want. You know, Susan is providing great input on the most important part of your life, which is your health, and so, but nothing changes unless you embrace the advice. So, you know, just imagine living life in control of your life, you know, and just playing the game of life at a higher level. There's a better way.
Brought tears to my eyes. Thank you, John. I think that is a wonderful place to leave it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.